How are you supposed to know what retirement would look like when you're 60? Today, I spoke to Robin Armour from Nest on why it's never too late to take control of your pension. Retirement just feels so far away from me mentally. It's hard to think about how to prepare for that. So I just wanted to know, why is pensions something I should care about when I'm in my early 20s, especially in maybe my first few jobs, and what I can do about it at that stage?
Yeah, so probably the big reason is that the earlier you start to save, the more that the savings that you make will do the hard work for you. So the money that you put in when you're young will be invested, and that will keep growing over time. And there's a thing called sort of compound growth. That means that putting money in early gives it longer to do those things, gives it longer to grow.
Okay, so if I'm in my 20s or 30s then, and I'm looking at my pension, and something that I did is I really considered opting out because I felt it was better off in my bank account, in my hands, rather than in my pension. But you're telling me that it's actually way more beneficial for me to keep that contribution because it means I'll be building up my pension pot for a longer time in totality.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other big benefit is that when you contribute to your workplace pension scheme, you get a contribution from the government in tax relief, and you get a contribution from your employer. So if we think about that, effectively, if you got paid £100 by your employer, normally that £100 would mean you take £80 home and £20 would go in tax relief. If you put that into the pension, £20 of tax that you'd have paid to the government will go in as tax relief into your pension as well. And your company will put another £60 in as well, generally. So the £80 you could have took home becomes £160 in your pension. So you've immediately doubled your money overnight, and then it will be invested for you over the long term. You'll get growth on all of that money. So it's a really, really efficient way to save for the future.
Okay, so I'm going to call it free future money. And I hope that's right.
You can do that, I can't.
But you also mentioned investing. You said something about compound growth, and I want to talk about those two things. So I really want to understand what my pension pot is doing, because if I'm making this contribution and actually I'm getting this free future money, is it being invested? And how does that compound growth actually happen to my pension pot?
All the money that you put into a pension plan generally is being invested for you. It's being invested into a range of different things. So that might be stocks and shares, and often that will be the largest companies that you know of around the world, from Apples and Coca-Colas and all the other huge firms that exist in the world, that you'll have a little bit of each of those in your investment mix. And also into other things like properties, residential property, business properties, and the rest. So there are lots of different assets, as we call them, that your money's in, and they should all help you produce a return as you go forwards. So it's the growth of those things and the way that those things increase in value, your pension pot's increasing with them. And the longer that your money's invested in those things, generally the longer it has to grow and the bigger it will grow.
And how does inflation impact that?
So inflation is the cost of things going up. So if you think about a loaf of bread, for example, that might cost you £1 today. But over time, the ingredients of that bread go up in cost. The transport costs of delivering it from the bakery to the shop go up in price. And all those things will come through in the price. So the price of your loaf of bread might go up from £1 to £1.50 to £2. If all you're thinking about is the cost of that, then that's obviously it's hitting you in your pocket. The benefit for you from a pension point of view is that all those different things that are making up the cost of that loaf of bread are things that you're invested in. So the bakery you might be invested in the fields of wheat that are selling the produce to make the bread. So you'll be getting a return through all of those things as the costs and the benefits of those increase. So actually that's driving some of the growth in your pension plan as well.
So if I'm invested into those things, is that how I am preventing myself from maybe losing the value of my money to inflation by not investing, by keeping it in a savings account?
Yeah, exactly that.
What if I was someone who maybe didn't understand pensions early on in my career, and I decided to start taking control of my pension and increasing my contributions, or at least managing my contributions a bit later in life? Is that something I could do?
Certainly, it's never too late to start. And if we think about workplace pensions, personal pensions are all extra bits of income that you're adding for the future on top of that basic state pension base layer. So you start from, you've got the basic state pension, that's going to pay you a certain amount, and then you want to add extra income on top.
Again, when I was in my early 20s, I had no idea whether I'd be able to get on the property ladder. Had no idea whether I'd want to get married or do any of these big things that maybe affect what kind of job I have, and how I maybe approach my pension. And I wanted to know, how do I kind of plan for this point later in my life when I'm at such an early stage where I can't think about home ownership, other assets I might have or could get? How do you plan for that kind of place to aim for?
Yeah, so it's really difficult. It's a big challenge to kind of know if I was 25, what income am I going to need when I'm 65? That's a long time in the future. You can start by thinking about sort of the income that you have. There's some good tools about what most people in retirement spend their money on and the sort of cost that comes to. And then over time, as you get older and you get a bit closer to that, as I am, then you start to be able to sort of narrow in your lens, if you like, and start thinking about, well, actually, I've now got a better idea of what that number I need is. I've got a better idea of what I'm on track for. Often the hardest thing is the first step, is getting yourself started. So if you're starting in your 20s and you might be worried that all you're doing is the minimum contribution, it's great you're doing the minimum contributions because you're on your way. You've taken those first steps on the path.
So if I then decide to increase my contributions, can I bring them back down? How much flexibility do I have around changing my mind?
As you're saving the money in, you've got that flexibility to dial your contributions up and down as to your affordability. So you might hit points in your life where you've got a bit of extra money and you could push that into your pension and boost your saving. There might be times when you're struggling a little bit more and you reduce down what you're saving and just trickle along for a little while. And both of those are fine options. And it's just for you to kind of keep that eye on the end goal and are you on course for it?
How do I actually keep track of what's happening when I look at my pension?
So the 3 steps to understanding, whether you're heading for the right thing. So start from, where do I want to be? So what's my aspiration in pension? What's that amount of money that I want to have each year in terms of income?
Yeah.
And then how much is in my pot and am I on track to produce that or not? Do I need to do something else? And if I need more money or it looks like I'm going to need more money in my pot, so the step 3 is then, what can I do? What are the different things that are available to me? So is it saving more money? Is it bringing in a different pension from somewhere else and combining them and that making it a better, more efficient way of saving? Is it changing the place that I invest? So they're all sort of different levers you could pull to impact that. But it's that sort of 3-stage process of, where do I want to be? What's my goal? Am I on target for it? What can I do to get myself there?
Yeah, I really, really like that. I'm almost thinking like it's like a GPS navigation system where you've got your end goal in sight and you can see all the directions or the maybe available routes you can get there, and you kind of have to check in every so often to make sure you're maybe on the best route that you could be taking.
Yeah. Do you want the fastest route?
Yeah.
Or the least toll booths?
Yeah. And what about the actual smaller things I need to think about when it comes to my pension? Do I need to keep track of anything or make sure that anything is up to date?
Yeah, so some basic things that it's really important that you keep in touch with your pension provider, so that they've got your contact details, whether that's your address, your phone number, your email, because they want to be in touch with you and you want to keep in touch with them because that's your money. So it's really important that you keep a track of that. And as you go through life, you might develop lots of different pension pots.
Yeah.
So keeping track of them all is really important so that you don't lose any of those. They don't get lost to you over time. And then you have to, when you get to retirement, you're searching around trying to make sure you found them all, you've got them all, because you don't want to leave that money behind. And those pension providers will be trying to find you as well. But if the address they have for you is 20 years out of date, it might be difficult for them. So absolutely number 1 is keep in touch. Second thing is, if you were to die before you take your pension out, the pension providers need to know what you want to be done with it, what you want to be done with that money. So who would you like it to be paid to? So there's a thing there where you can nominate what's called your beneficiary, so the person who would benefit in the event of your death from your pot value. So that's an important thing for most providers to know as well. They're probably less pleasant than just telling them that you've moved house, but that's a really key one as well. And then keeping up to date with the age at which you're intending to retire. That might change over time. and then keeping up to date with that planning about, am I doing enough to get myself where I want to be?
Okay, I think that's a really nice checklist, especially in terms of the address and the name, because you're right, even if they've tried to get in contact with you, if they've got the wrong details, the life admin part of actually keeping all your pension pots together is made harder. If you like this video, subscribe for more.